Alright, hey everyone. So today we are going to be going over some common commands in the command line and getting deeper into GitHub. So we're going to be making a boilerplate for our static websites. A boilerplate is just sort of like a template of code that you can use every time you're making a project. So if you remember when we used REPL, Replit, when we made a REPL, there was already some starting code in the index.html file. We are sort of going to be making that template, but learning how to do it with Terminal and GitHub. So I want you guys to open your Finder and go to just wherever you hold files and documents on your computer. So then go to the Documents tab if you have one. If you don't have one, you could really go to any tab like the desktop. This part isn't important. So go to a tab and then right click and click New Folder. Name that folder Code and slide it over into on the sidebar. So this line right here, not inside a file like that, right here. So I already have one, so I'm not going to do that, but alright, so now you guys should have a code directory on your sidebar/menu. Okay, so now open up your terminal. If you're on a Mac, then you could just command spacebar or click the search button and type in terminal. If you're on a Windows, then the name is command prompt, I'm pretty sure. Alright, so open it up. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see better. Okay, now the very first thing we have to do is we're going to be running commands from our terminal. We have to make sure we are in the right location when running the commands, because say I want to create a file. If I'm not in the correct location on my terminal, then it's not sure where to create that file. So we have to specify that we want to, since we're creating a new project boilerplate, we want to create a boilerplate in this code folder. So we might all be on different paths right now in our terminal. So that we're all on the same path, let's type cd ... So cd is just a way to move around directories/folders on your machine. So cd, so that should take you to the highest directory, but let's make sure it did by typing cd space ... and then typing that a few more times. When you type that command, see if this right here is changing. If this path is not changing, then you're in the largest directory because there's no other directory it can move up to. You see, when I was here, there was a tilde, and then I cd'd a few paths, and I came to this highest directory. Alright, so now that we're in this highest directory, we can all move the same way down to our code directory. So let's find the path of this code directory so we can get there. If you're on a Mac, the way to find a path of something is just by clicking it, and then you could click Command I, and a little info pop-up will show up, and right here, this where section, you can copy and paste that. That's going to be the path that this code folder is located. If you're on a Windows, then what you have to do is click the file, hold down the Shift key, and then right-click. And then there should be an option in the menu to view the file or copy the file path. Alright, so now everyone should have the file path. So to move to our code directory, we are going to type cd, and then we can just paste that file path. Now, one thing to notice is that this is the path that we just put is the path that the code directory is located in. So if we want to put something inside the code directory, a file, then what we should do is add a slash and then add code. Now we are in the code directory, and we could make files and folders inside here. And look, if I cd up one, I'm going to be in this tilde where I was before, and I could keep like cding, and I just get back to where I was. So I'm just going to By the way, guys, when you want to go back to commands that you used before, you can just click the up arrow and you can see commands that you ran previously. Alright, so now that you're in the code folder, let's start our new project. So we're going to make a new directory, and then we're going to add some folders to that. So to make a directory, you can use the command mkdir, which stands for make directory. Then we're going to put the path, which is just /. / is basically saying make a directory in this path that I am in right now, which is code. Sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know if you can hear her. So we're going to make the directory, and we're going to call it static site boilerplate. Now, when you are in your code and you organize it, you should see the folder. So let's make some files inside our static site boilerplate. The very first thing I have to do now is, since I want to make them inside that folder, I'm going to have to cd into that folder. So we're already in code, so we can just type cd static site boilerplate. Now that we're in the correct folder, we can make our files inside it. So to make a file, we can use the command touch. So touch and then / for the path, saying in this path. We can now name the file. So touch / index.html. Then let's do touch / style.css. And then I'm going to use the up arrow to get a previous command and change that last one to script.js. So script.js is where we put our JavaScript code for our websites. We haven't actually worked with JavaScript code next week, but next week we are going to start on Intro to JavaScript, and then we could start utilizing it in our websites in this script.js file. So let's go into our folder, and your files should now be within. Okay, cool. So let's now push this to GitHub and just make our initial commit with our files. So open up your GitHub. And we are going to create a new repository and then link that repository to our local files. So click on repositories and then click this button right here, new. We can name our repository the same thing as our folder, static site boilerplate. And then a description could be a boilerplate for my static HTML, CSS, JS sites. Okay, and then create that repository. Now, what comes up is like a quick setup that it gives us. So we're going to use this link later on to connect our code. So keep this up, don't click anything. Now head back over to your terminal and let's start on the process of linking our stuff and pushing to GitHub. So the very first thing you have to do is initialize an empty repository. So to do this, we can type git init. That's going to tell us it initialized an empty repository. Oh, and one thing also is that I actually sent you guys in the HTML CSS channel in Slack, I sent this document which details exactly how to do this. So since we're you're just starting off and stuff, you will probably need to look at this and remember the exact commands. So this is a great document. All right, so git init was the first command. Now we initialize the repository, we need to add our files and code changes. So git add space dot. Git add with this dot is basically saying add everything. The dot symbolizes everything. So we git added our files. Now let's write a commit message. Git commit -m space quotation marks, and then we're just going to put our commit message. So you can put anything you want here, initial commit, first deploy, whatever. And that is going to tell us what has changed about our files. So we basically just added 3 files. Now, what we need to do is do the actual linking. So this URL that it gave us right here, you are going to copy this. So that button right there. And then we're going to type git remote add origin, and then space, and then paste that URL. So that just added the origin as what we just created in our GitHub. And to check that it did this correctly, we can type git remote -v. Let me move this over. And you will see that it is the correct URL. All right, so now we can push to GitHub. Git push -u origin master. That will push our files, and when we check, we should see them all right here. Okay, cool. So now let's go in and let's talk about Readmes. But first, okay, actually, yeah, let's talk about Readmes. So your Readmes are basically a way to, I'm not sure if we should talk about Readmes or, sorry, do a git push to GitHub again with a new commit. You know what? I'm sorry, guys. I think we actually, let's do a new commit and then let's talk about Readmes, because you know what? Every time you're going to want to push to GitHub over and over again. And so pushing to GitHub not initially as like a normal project when you're just making changes isn't nearly as complicated and verbose as like initializing the whole project. So let's actually make a change. So if you guys don't, now for the people who don't have an IDE like VS Code or Sublime or some other code editor on your computer, if you don't have one, this is for the people who don't have one, I want you to go into your index.html file, okay? And then in the HTML and CSS channel, I am going to paste this document in there, and I just want you to copy this template of code. So then you're going to click, you can pause the video and get that file. Then you're going to click this edit this file and paste that in. Then write a commit message like added HTML template, and then click commit changes right there. Okay, I'm going to cancel this because I'm going to do it the other way to show everyone else now. So that's if you don't have an IDE on your computer. Now, if you do have an IDE, let's go in and add our code through using the IDE and then using the terminal. So that's just pushing the change directly in GitHub, and now we are going to do it doing it locally first. So in your index.html file, open it with whatever editor you usually use. Oh, I quit this a few minutes ago, so it'll take a second. Okay, and then also go into that HTML CSS channel. I will post the code there that you need to copy, and just copy that code. All right, so make sure to save it, and now you should have your new template within it. Okay, so now this is still for the people who just did that with the IDE. Now we can push to GitHub. So let's push to GitHub, and that is only using 3 commands we can do this. So the very first command you have to use is git add. We want to add all our files and changes that we just made. Then we're going to write a commit message, git commit -m space quotation mark added HTML template. Now we can git push. All right, and you can see these 3 commands are a lot simpler than before. And you'll get very used to this stuff if you aren't already. Now let's refresh our GitHub, and we should see that there is a new commit. There's 2 commits, a new commit, and then our index.html file has that code. Okay, now let's talk about Readmes. Okay, so this is for everyone. Readmes are basically a way for people who don't want to look at your code and don't want to go and search your website to understand your project better. So Readmes basically provide a summary of your project, some screenshots maybe, why you created it, the technologies used. They're very helpful if you just kind of want to skim and get the idea of a certain developer's projects. So I'll show you guys really quickly an example Readme. So you can see here we have the header, a summary, the live website, and then like the problem, so why we made this app. Then we included some screenshots of the app, and then the result. And then here is the stack. So the stack is basically just technologies used. Okay, so you can see a README is kind of just a way for people maybe who are or aren't developers to understand your project better. Alright, so let's go in and let's add a README to our site, except our README will be detailing how to use this boilerplate for people to make their own static websites. So you can click Add README, and then READMEs actually have their own sort of syntax. So this hashtag it's not complicated. This hashtag right here is basically the equivalent of an H1 header in HTML. It is the main title of your README of your site, and it's the largest and bold. And then here they kind of just put in the description that we put in originally. Now, into where I sent that lesson 5 code document, you can just copy and paste right here the writing and paste that in. So this double hashtag is sort of like an H2 element in our HTML sites. It's going to be like a subheader. And then these like ticks right here, this is under the escape key on your keyboard. It's sharing the key with the tilde. So what this does is basically puts whatever's within it as like code. So you'll see in a second. So we can type, create readme, and then commit this file. Now you can see that there's like this large title, and then we have these within these like ticks is the code. And this just tells us how we can use the template. Okay, so now what we have to do is look, I just added a README on my GitHub to my project. The only thing is, in my local machine, I don't have that readme.md file. So I'm gonna have to pull the changes I made onto my GitHub and pull them to my local files so I can have the same, code. All right. So these pull requests obviously get harder as you start working with collaborators and they get a little more complex, but for right now, it's really simple how we can get this. All we type is git pull, and that will pull the information that we included here onto our local computer. So now when you go, you should see readme.md with your other files. And also for the people who added without the IDE, who added the code straight into GitHub, this pull request also took care of that. It took care of getting that code onto your machine. Okay. So now that we pulled and we learned how to make normal commits and initialize repositories, let's find out how we can actually use this boilerplate to make new projects. So let's try and make a new project using what this tells us to do. I want my new project to be in my code directory. Right now, I'm located in my static site boilerplate directory. What I'm going to have to do is get out of this folder and get into here, just here, so that I can put it inside here. So remember, the way to do this to move up one directory is c space ... Now I am in the correct folder path, file path. Okay, so now that I'm in my current directory, I am going to clone this repository code. It tells us right here, git clone, and then you include the boilerplate URL, and then the new project name. So it's going to add this code with whatever new project, new app name we include. So just to make sure you have the right URL, click this again, and then copy and paste that URL. Then go in and type git clone, add that URL space, and then since this is just a test to see if our boilerplate is working for new projects, you can name it whatever, and you can delete it after if you want. Testing static site. All right, so now when you go on in your code directory, there is the folder with the 4 files. So what this also means is that every time you create a new project using this template, you're going to get this README in your GitHub. So you can change that if you want to or not. It's really whatever you want. So now what we have to do is we have to cd in the cloned repository and then run this command. So let's cd into testing static site or whatever you called it, and then let's run this command. So what this does is basically it removes all the previous Git history that we had with the project. So it's going to start fresh. And then we also use this and sign and say also git init. So what that does is if you use this command, it sort of saves you one step later on when you're first linking your project to GitHub of the git init step. It's also not a huge deal if you git init multiple times. Really, this is just a way to help out a little bit more. So then you can copy this code and you can see it initialize the repository. All right, and yeah, you can delete this if you want now and X out of everything. But yeah, so that is basically it for today. Let me know if you guys have any questions regarding anything whatsoever, because I know there's a lot of stuff to this and we can't go over everything, but if you have any personal questions regarding branches, merge failures, how to work with collaborators, I would love to answer them and talk with you about it. So thanks everyone for watching, and I guess I will see you next week. Bye guys.